Now, I'm going to say a couple things this morning that may shock you. In fact, well, it may or may not. I'll let you be shocked or not be shocked. It's up to you. The first one is this past week, as I've been driving back and forth between Normandy Park and Auburn, shocker number one, I've been listening on Sirius XM to Howard Stern. I love that. You guys are awesome. Just on cue. Now, that's not normally something that I do, but does anyone know who Howard interviewed this last week? Anybody? Look, none of you listened to Howard Stern. Okay. Bruce Springsteen. Yeah, I know. Shocking again, isn't it? Bruce Springsteen is one of my favorite artists, musicians, songwriters. Somehow is able, through his words and playing and performing, sort of able to reach into your heart and soul and just drag out real life. And you can see that that is his great gift. In fact, what struck me in his conversation this week with Howard Stern was he said this, said that his career, Bruce, has been a lifelong conversation between himself and his audience. That his career has been a lifelong conversation between himself and his audience. And that really struck me as I was preparing for this Sunday because I think that is what is going on between God and us. Maybe think of it this way. The purpose of God's career is to engage in a lifelong conversation with each and every one of us, both as individuals, but also as communities of faith. And I think that this conversation God wants to have with us enables, allows, provokes from us amazing things. You see it in what the psalmist says that Anne read this morning. The psalmist makes this audacious claim. The psalmist can pray, may God bless us, and may God be gracious to us. How do these claims in this prayer get made? Because the psalmist has been in a lifelong conversation with God, and God, luckily, just won't stop talking. I am gracious. I am merciful. I will provide. God keeps talking and talking and then listening. What do you think, people? What do you think? What are you going to do with that? Let's talk. Because the psalmist trusts that God really is who God is and really does what God says God's going to do, I am gracious. I provide. The psalmist is able to say, in the midst of the ups and downs of life, okay, I'm going to try to go and act the same way you do, God. I think it might be true. Think about as we come here on All Saints Sunday and Commitment Sunday, a blessing of the intense. Come here this Sunday with that spirit of ongoing conversation between us and God. It is one that over the course of this fall, I've been inviting everyone to pray about. What has God blessed you, me, us with, and how might we set aside a portion of that for God's work in the world? As God is faithful and providing in many things, how might we also go and live that way with one another? One of the things that I have not done a very good job at this fall is to lift up the leadership of our council and our finance team who have, over the course of these last weeks, brought their intents already to us as a sign of not just saying they're leaders, but leading by example. And I can guarantee you that even though I may have failed some in my ability to speak highly of who our leaders are and what they do, they've been leading by example. Like the psalmist, I think they really trust that they can make this commitment for our ministry in the coming year because God has made a commitment to them. I will provide. I am gracious. Now go and do likewise. I'm happy because this fall I've been this rah-rah guy. Come on, church council. Come on, finance team. Let's lead by example. Happy that they've caught a little bit of that spirit. But I also have a confession. Kirsten and I have not yet made our commitment. The rah-rah guy has been the slacker guy. But I want to tell you a little bit about that. These past couple of weeks, Lynn in the church office has kept saying, hey, Pastor Chuck, we've got everyone's commitments. Come on, where's yours? Thank you, Lynn, for being encouraging of me in your own wonderful, encouraging way. Kirsten and I have been having our own ongoing conversation. You see, when you have two incomes that are consistent, it's maybe not that difficult to say what percentage of that are we going to set aside, write down a number, and give it to Lynn. But when your spouse decides to start two businesses during the pandemic and her income is whoop, 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 if I was to say to Lynn, well, I think it's going to be this, and then it's something, I mean, even if I just put a percentage, Lynn, we're going to put 5% of Kirsten's income, or 6, or whatever it would be. Can you put that in the computer? Lynn's head would explode. How do you make a commitment of something that you have no idea how God is going to bless you? How do you live that way? I mean, as you all know, I'm a planner, I'm a manager. I like to dot my I's and cross my T's. I like to have everything sort of in order. How do you live this way when you don't know exactly how or when God is going to bless you? Kirsten keeps saying to me, Chuck, hold on to this. Yes, the times are uncertain, but God's promises are not. Say that with me. Times are uncertain, God's promises are not. So that's been my ongoing conversation this fall with God. It goes something like this. God, why are you making my life hell? God back to me. Oh, that's not me. That's you. Why, God? Because you're not listening to what I'm saying. Well, what are you saying? Are you going to listen this time? Okay. I am gracious, and I will bless you. Now go and live that way. Yeah, I know. That's what you always say. Paul, we've been reading or overhearing might be the better way of saying it, a conversation that Paul has been having with the church at Corinth. A conversation that has been, God has blessed us so much. Let's set aside some of those blessings for the church in Jerusalem as this sort of audacious sign of community across culture. Paul writes, I'm glad that we arranged for this offering in advance so that I might take what you have promised and deliver it to the saints in Jerusalem. That's why we do Commitment Sunday. As followers of Jesus, stewardship does take promises. God promises us, we promise one another. Our promises to one another and to our ministry at Messiah, they happen because God has blessed us and provides for us everything that God keeps telling me that I'm trying to lean into but are struggling with. Because God promises that God will provide, we can make promises to provide for the ministry of this place in order to help meet the needs not just of ourselves, but of this amazing city that we live in and beyond. The saints are part of this conversation also. Look around you. They talk to us every Sunday in this amazing stained glass. How did that get here? It's because the saints of Messiah, the generations before us, gave out of what God provided to them in order that they might make this contribution that keeps the conversation going. Look at the stories that we're surrounded by, that were made possible by the gifts of the saints before us. I think that's a little bit of what Jesus is getting at when Jesus says, others have labored, and you, us, we have entered into their labor. The names we might not always remember, but the saints who have been here at Messiah gifted us with this amazing conversation that enlivens our faith and helps even stubborn, closed ears pastors like me actually hear and trust that God is going to do what God promises to do. So I say thank you to all the saints of Messiah who have come before. Which leads me to my final piece here. What are we going to do? What are we going to do? How are we going to become the generation that pushes these blessings forward and out into our community? What are we going to do? We've tried to capture that a little bit these last years with our 4 sort of vision pieces. Hey, you know what? How we're going to push this forward? We're going to embrace all people. I saw that on Friday in a little sliver of a way when we gathered, when all the friends gathered here lunch with our seniors was taking place. Sitting around with soup and sandwiches. Shout out to Mike at Trotters for fixing that up for us. That was an amazing thing that he did for us. But in those conversations around the tables right out there, I got just this sense of we embrace one another in all our differences and even the community around us. Engage our wider community. Same thing on Friday morning. I was at the Auburn Food Bank breakfast, and Laura Canis, who's helping lead the Auburn Food Bank, one of our members here, was up there invoking, enticing, encouraging folks to share of their blessings so that no one in Auburn goes hungry. That's through her work and our connection to the Auburn Food Bank, one of the ways in which we engage our wider community. It's not just about us, it's about everyone around us. Enhance. Friday again, all this comes from Friday morning. Friday again, I was helping the crew. Adriana was there, and Ross and Dave and Michael. We were loading quilts and health kits into this little tiny trailer, which almost every single one of us, except for Adriana, we all thought they wouldn't fit. And Adriana said, oh yes, they will. We'll make them fit. Enhance our ability to live our faith in our daily life, even if it's something as simple as, oh, heck yeah, we're going to get those into that trailer. It's how we let the light of Christ shine through us. Explore how God's love is changing our lives. That's the essence of faith formation. I had an amazing conversation this last week about how we might evolve our time for children to become really a significant part of our faith forming activities. And Pastor Bridge and I were expanded that conversation, and we're brainstorming. It's an amazing thing that happens here at Messiah. Say those four with me: embrace, engage, enhance, explore. You see them on the posts as we come in front door of Messiah. So what do we take from all this as we go to our time of commitment? Well, Lynn, I'm sorry. Thank you. I just received absolution. I made confession, now I've received absolution. There's a number on our card, okay? And you can enter that in the computer. I got a thumbs up. But then there's also a parenthesis. Some percentage that will equal some actual dollar amount when we can kind of add, and Lynn's going, oh my God, how do I get that in the computer? It's messy. It's a leap of faith. It's trying to listen to God who keeps wanting to talk to me. But I got something down on paper, and it's going in that basket in just a few minutes. So I invite us all into this. Making that commitment, that promise that Paul talks about, it's not always easy. It's oftentimes messy. Sometimes not exact. It evolves over time. However, even the most stubborn among us with the most closed ears can actually do it because God keeps talking to us, keeps promising, keeps providing. As we are wrapped up in that, we can share a little bit of what we have for the benefit of others. God's people say, Amen.